So I think, yeah, because that's probably the cheapest way to get started, because you need money to farm, and to farm that takes months before you start seeing results. Expireds could, unless you like cold calling to call expireds, I think open houses make sense because you're probably going to work with buyers way before you work with a seller to list their home. So I think that's my advice when I have people start.
Gotcha. Hi, welcome to the J Wells CFO Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Wells, and owner of J Wells CFO, a full-service accounting firm. With me today, I'm really happy to have Melissa Cruz. She's coming on as the first realtor I've talked to with a brokerage in the Jacksonville area called EXP Realty. So I'm really excited to hear how this brokerage is different from all the others. This is something that I'm starting to pick on the more I the more I talk to realtors and learn about realtors and how they're doing, is that the brokerages matter. So I'm really excited to get our first guest on from EXP Realty, Melissa Cruz. So Melissa, I'll turn it over to you. Let you introduce yourself. Tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. EXP Realty, I heard of them a little bit before joining. I didn't know too much about it, and then I met with this gentleman, Chris, who eventually got me to join EXP. But the biggest thing about EXP that's so different than any other company is that they're 100% cloud-based, and they own that cloud-based system now. So they have complete control, and which makes my job a little bit easier, especially partnered up with their CRM program. It makes it a lot easier for me to stay in contact and stay top of mind with my customers. So I love that about it.
Cool. Good deal. So tell us what that means. As somebody who's not a realtor, what does it mean for a brokerage not to be cloud-based? And then how does that change your ability to serve your clients?
Right. So it's a little different. So most people, most companies you go to are going to have like an actual brick and mortar place that you can physically walk in and say, hey, this is a real estate company. We have places where we can meet people for that. I have a home office set up, and most people at EXP have that kind of setup going on. But what I loved about it is different, but what I loved about that is that I get to support my locals. So, I had that comment from someone before, well, where do you meet your customers now if you don't have an office to go to? And I'm like, we live in the most local supported town or city I've ever lived in. So when I get to meet customers, I get to go to a place that is locally owned and support their business while I'm doing my business with my customers. So I thought that was super unique and another way to keep everything kind of, within St. Augustine. And honestly, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I haven't had a real issue either with customers. I mean, if they prefer to meet in an office, there is a place that I can meet. But it hasn't really changed anything in my business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I can totally get behind that because, I think in general, people think of, when they're looking for an accountant, they think of all the CPA offices that they pass by, on their way to work or going down the highway. And, this is my office. This is our master closet that I've converted into a home office because we've got a 2-year-old and we're living in a 2-bedroom condo. So there's nowhere else for an office. And it's good because I still have that separate space that I need to work, but at the same time, I don't have the overhead. I don't have the physical location.
That's another huge thing, because instead of me putting, for real estate, it's all commission based, right? So I have to be careful, or we all have to be careful on where we're spending our money, how we're spending it, how often we're spending it. So to not have to pay for a brick and mortar place, the desk fees and all these other things that a broker's going to charge you because they have to. It saves me a lot of money that I can then turn around and put back into my customers, whether it's educating myself, educating them, doing something spectacular or extra for a seller. It gives me an opportunity to give them something else than saying, I'm kind of, my hands are tied. You know what I mean? So it definitely helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. No. And so, you brought up, well, how do you meet with clients then? I don't have the fancy boardroom that, the clients can come in with the big dark wood, table and all this. No, but I live across the street from a coffee shop, and it's one of the most popular coffee shops in the area. And so when I throw that out to somebody who does want to meet in person, they already know where it is, and if they don't, they can find it on a map pretty easily. And it's it can get a little loud, it can get a little noisy, but that's just part of it, right? We sit down, and if we do need somewhere more private, I'll find somewhere more private for us to meet. But it really it hasn't become a problem yet.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and
I haven't
so,
seen a problem there.
yeah, right. And I would much rather walk over to that coffee shop and buy somebody a $3 or $4 cup of
Oh,
coffee
yeah.
than have to pay, $1,000 rent or
Right.
mortgage every month on brick
Right.
and mortar
Yeah,
location.
exactly. To try to keep that. I mean, I don't think people understand how expensive it is to keep the building running.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
we save a
Absolutely.
lot of money that way that we can put back into our business, which I think is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so much of what is going on in accounting, and I'm, sure real estate is similar. I want to hear more about this, but so much of what is, you use the word cloud based, and that's a huge trend coming up in
Right.
accounting. Is so much of what was happening 10 years or more ago in terms of accounting, even with computers, was on that machine, right? So your
Right.
bookkeeping file was on that machine, your tax return you prepared on that machine. And so it had to be, you had to have that physical location, you had to have that
Right.
machine, and everything was there. And now we have bookkeeping software that's cloud based, we have records retention
Yeah.
that's cloud based,
Yeah,
we have
because I
tax
mean, there's
prep
a lot of
software that's cloud based.
companies. Yeah, there's a lot of companies trying to go paperless, and
Absolutely.
it helps the environment and everything. So it's a huge plus because they've just always had. That's how they started. So they've it's been really an interesting process, but it's been really fun.
So when I think about real estate, I think, the first place, a realtor probably goes is the MLS. And of course
Right.
that's all digital, that's cloud based. You just log into that. And so,
Exactly.
why need a physical location to
Yeah, everybody's
house all of
online.
that? Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
So you're just out and about. In fact, usually when I ask a realtor a question, it's over text. I get a text back. They
Right.
send me a link to the MLS listing. It's just really quick and easy. And
Right.
I didn't need an office to meet that person. I
Right.
didn't need that. Yeah. Awesome.
And I
Awesome.
think too, when you first meet a customer, unless you're working with someone that you already know, it takes a little while before they're ready to actually meet face to face. So to have all of, to be able to supply things on demand quickly and get to them as fast as we need to, then I mean that really helps to build that relationship.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. So, other than that, how is being a realtor for you? How did you get into that business? Give us a little bit of your backstory there.
Well, I was a manager, the assistant manager at the Pier 1 here in St. Augustine for a few
Okay.
years, and then I had my children and took a year off. And then talked with my husband to figure out, okay, it's been a year now. I really got to get, I really wanted to get back into work. And so real estate kind of came up. It kind of felt like a good fit for me. So I took the class, and passed it. And it was a little bit of a struggle for me, I would say, because I knew nothing about real estate. I had family and friends that had bad experiences about it. So it kind of turned me off. And I was like, oh, I don't think I ever want to buy a house. But when I got into it and learned the values and learned really about the business, it took me a little while to kind of get started because I wanted to make sure I understood the process, and because people are like, oh, fake it till you make it. I'm like, you can see all over my face that I have no idea what's going on.
Right.
So I just, took all the classes I can take, learn everything I could, ask for help. I read books, and that kind of helped me get that momentum. So once I hit my 2 years, I got my broker's license. And so every year, that's something I always try to do is get another certification or designation
Gotcha.
so I can be that much better for my customers.
And so how does that change you and the work you can do by having that broker's license? How does that set you apart?
I think the education, the knowledge that you get from it, because I had ever, like I said, had been doing real estate for a couple years. So when I got into the broker's class, my mind was blown. I was like, how do I not know this information? So, and I share it with other realtors. It's not something I mean, this business is not a secret. And I think, helping someone else be successful helps yourself too. And so the things that I learned, I share with them because I'm like, hey guys, we need to know this, and I think it'll make us a better industry, sharing that kind of information with each other. But it's helped me a lot. I really put things into place. So when I have an issue or a question or an objection from a customer, I know exactly what to say, how to get over that and help them so they don't get stuck.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Especially, having kids, that kind of changes your whole
Yes.
outlook on
Well,
life.
yeah. Yeah, because I wanted to do, I knew I didn't want to do retail. I didn't want to do a night. I wanted to do something that was a little bit more flexible so that I could still be there for my kids
Yeah.
and be able to do all those things and still work at the same time. So it was a really great fit.
Before I came into accounting, I was teaching at a university. And so, I did have a lot of free time built into that schedule, but at the same time, the course schedule that I was assigned to teach was based on what the department and the university needed. And so if
Right.
they needed an evening class 2 nights a week, I was teaching an evening class 2 nights a week.
Yeah.
If they needed an 8 a.m. class the next morning, I was there for that 8 a.m. class. And so, there was flexibility in the schedule in terms of the free time I had, but I didn't determine anything of when I was actually going to be at work. That was all
Right.
determined for me. And so when I looked at accounting, yes, we have our busy season in the spring with
Oh
tax
yeah.
season, and that kind of stuff, right? And so, you're putting in a little bit longer hours, but for the other 8 or 9 months of the year, you've got so much flexibility. If I want to get up
Right.
early in the morning and knock out a few hours of work, or if I want to, put it off and, put that in the evening or something, I can do that. It's up to me. I don't
Right.
have to be at a certain location at a certain
Right.
time that's been assigned to me. I just make that up as I go along to
Right.
fit the
I
needs, right?
Yeah, I mean it's super stressful, I mean if your kids get sick and you have to call out of work and you're calling out too often, it was just, when I thought about it, it just made me so anxious. So and I was like, I
Yeah.
need to do something. And then the other thing about it too was I didn't want to be capped in my ability. I work really hard and take pride in my work ethic and everything that I do, because when I go into a job, I try to be like the best. And so I can't do that. Not that my kids kind of hold me back, but I need to be there for them too. So I wanted to make sure I had that flexibility to do something and say, hey, listen, my kids are sick today. I can't work, or, I can work from home, or, things like that. So it was a huge concern.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you brought up the individual that got you interested in EXP, and then
Yes.
you said you've tried to learn a lot. How important has building relationships with other realtors and the people that you're working with? How important has that been in your career? And would you say you have a mentor? Do you have somebody that you're relying on to kind of see your way through building up this career of yours?
Well, I think building relationships is pretty much the job. If you're not building relationships and truly getting to know the people you're working with, you're not doing your job correctly. Anybody can get a license and sell you a home, but do they actually care about the home you're getting into? There's certain questions. I think if you're not asking your customers these questions, especially ones that are financing or buying their first time home, first home, you're really doing them a disservice. So that part for me is huge. As far as a mentor, not really. I mean, I've had people that kind of help me out and will reach out to me and say, hey, is there anything I can do to help you and support your business? I'm trying to think, when you said that, I was like, I don't have one
Yeah.
person that comes to mind, but um,
Yeah, but like you said, you build these relationships over time, and you've got people that you can bounce questions off of, and this kind of
right,
thing. And so yeah, that builds up over time. Sometimes when you
right,
come into this field that you've never been in, it just kind of happens. And the thing that's interested me really is that when you get into one of these professions, you think, I thought coming into accounting, boy, there's so many accountants out there. At least it looked like it to
right,
me. It's going to be cutthroat. Everybody's going to be, if somebody thinks, if they sense that weakness, or if they think there's a
right,
client they can steal from you, they're going to be after it. And really what I find is the opposite, that the more
right.
I talk to accountants, the more, they're happy when you succeed. They're happy when you
Oh
sign up.
yeah,
And so,
yeah,
and the more I talk to realtors, there's kind of this sense. I mean, I know everybody wants, to get a listing. Everybody wants the market share. Everybody wants to
right,
cash that commission check. But at the same time, I see realtors referring people to each other because,
right,
maybe this client needs something that isn't in their wheelhouse, or it's not in the
right.
region that they focus on, or something like that. And
Oh
so it
yeah,
does
yeah,
tend to be
yeah.
this
Because I don't do a
collaborative
whole lot in
effort.
Jacksonville, so that'd be one thing. When I pick up someone, I really honestly do not know. I mean, Jacksonville's huge and it's a beast, and I do not know most of Jacksonville. So for
Right.
me, that's a perfect thing to do, because I'd be a disservice to my customer if I try to do that myself. So that exactly, you pass that along.
And then on the flip side, you're going to be working in a neighborhood that somebody else in Jacksonville isn't going to know as well.
Right.
And, that person will mention you or bring you up.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
And so,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it really is, you get into it thinking it's going to be the zero sum game, right? Everything that you get,
Right.
I'm going to lose.
Because you
Right. But
see someone else
actually,
making all this money. Yeah, you're like, oh,
yeah,
that'll be. I mean, I can do the same thing really quickly. And
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's why I think in this business, it's really not for everybody. Because if you're not a people person and you're not someone who is a problem solver, because things are going to come up in every transaction. I mean, everyone is different. Then I don't think it's the right, job for you. You're not going to make money quickly right away. And when I help people, I'm actually doing I signed up to be a mentor for EXP.
Okay.
So I can help new agents coming in and really teach them how to, work a deal. If you have any problems, how do you, what are the solutions? I think that is really, really important
Yeah.
for people
Yeah.
to
So
understand.
So how is what is it like? You say you pass the exam, right? And now all of a sudden you're a licensed real estate agent. What then? Like where do you go? What is day one of being this newly minted real estate agent look like, right?
Oh my
Where
gosh, I
yeah,
remember my first day I walked in, I'm like, okay, so now what?
yeah, right,
I was like, what do I do now? Because when you take the real estate class, they're teaching you about the law. So when you pass that and you then go into, you meet with brokers, you pick your broker and the company and you start, it was just like, okay, so I have no idea what to do. so,
yeah,
so what I like with our board, there are certain classes that are mandated for you to take, which really helps you get a jump start on what you should be learning. Because that was the other thing. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be learning next. So part of when I was with the other company, we have a track. So when a new realtor starts, we have like a 2-month kind of track for every week. This is what you kind of should be doing, classes online you should be taking, things you should be learning. I had a huge part in redoing that whole thing because I said, guys, listen, when I first started, this was so unorganized and like I felt like it was out of order.
yeah,
As a new agent, you're not going to have money. You're probably going to have just enough for savings just to get by in case you don't get a deal within the first, 3 to 6 months. So I switched it to where we had money needing activities to the front. So open houses all day. So that would be the first thing I would tell someone, get your classes done, learn that stuff at the same time, but hit open houses quickly. And because you don't really need any money to do that. You need money to farm, you need money for expireds and things like that. But that's the cheapest way I think someone can get started. So
yeah,
I think, yeah, because that's probably the cheapest way to get started because you need money to farm. And to farm, that takes months before you start seeing results. Expireds could, unless you like cold calling to call expireds, I think open houses make sense because you're probably going to work with buyers way before you work with a seller to list their home. So I think
yeah.
that's my advice when I have people start.
Gotcha. And I know just, again, on the consumer side that it's helpful to go to an open house, not even necessarily if you're specifically interested in that house, but if you're interested in the neighborhood, right?
Right,
And if you're not set on a realtor yet, it gives you an
right.
opportunity to learn more about the neighborhood and
Oh
to start.
yeah,
It's almost a way of interviewing a realtor without really putting them on the spot, right? Because
right,
they know that house, they should know the neighborhood if they're
right,
doing that open house, and so they're not necessarily on the spot. You're not trying to ask trick questions, but at the same time, you're getting a feeling for, do we click? Is this going to be, could this be a good relationship and that kind of thing.
right,
Again, on the consumer side, I'm a big fan of the open houses. Not just like I say,
right.
I might not be interested in that house, but I might be interested in this realtor. I might be interested in this.
Right. And I think what you said too is key. I think people start and they're like, well, I need to make money and go right away. I find if you don't spend that little bit of time, extra time in the beginning when you meet a customer, whether you're listing their home or helping them buy a home, you might shoot yourself in the foot in the long run. Like you said, if the
Yeah,
personalities don't match or if you don't like talking on the phone and that's the only way they want to communicate, it's not going to be a good fit. You guys are just going to get each other upset throughout the whole process. And then no one's happy by the time you're at the closing table. So I think that part is really big. Like take that time. I know it's when you first start, you're so desperate for that first closing, you know what I mean? But taking that extra step is going to, I think will help you get to that closing table a little bit sooner because shows you truly care.
absolutely. So when you become a realtor, right, you become self-employed. You came from being an employee, of
Right.
this retail location to now all of a sudden you're self-employed. What, when did that hit you that now I'm my own boss, and how did you react to that realization, and what did you do from there?
Um, well, I was kind of excited about it. Like ever since I was a child, I'm not like, I guess like other people kind of grow up and think like when I was a little girl and I was growing up, I wanted to have my own business. Like my life goal was to be a business owner because of you see all these things of people getting laid off and all these things going on. And it's just like they work so hard to just be laid off, and it's happened to people that I know and it's heartbreaking. So I was excited for that part. What I wasn't prepared for was like the actual business side. So I started reading Tons of books about how to run small businesses, things you need to be doing, whether, with business plans, setting goals, things like that. That was a huge help for me to really get the whole process kind of down, because I don't think people understand when you get into real estate, you're actually running a business. Your whole mindset has to be different. How you work that business, how you spend your money, how you track it. It's all, completely different. I just wasn't 100% prepared, but I read a few books and it's been a couple of years. I think I'm okay now.
Which books and which ones would you recommend for, a realtor just getting started?
The one that I really loved was I'm drawing a blank. I have the two that I know I really love. 10. I'm like drawing a blank. I can probably run and grab them really quick.
That's okay. That's okay.
And then I'm reading this one now, The Compound Effect.
Okay.
Which has been really great. I really like this one.
Good deal.
It was like 10. I can see it in my hand. I can't think of it. It's an orange book. And the other one was How to Climb Your Ladder. And that was so the analogy that she used in that book was the ladder, and that one really tied into the other one. So, when you first, because people are like, oh, well, I want to be the CEO of my company. I'm like, I'm not even a CEO of my company yet. There's levels and steps you need to get to before you can get to that part. And I don't think people understand all the work you have to do in between before you can actually get to that part. Yeah. I'll send you the books, the titles and the authors.
Sure,
but they
absolutely.
were fantastic reads.
Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes in the description so that people can get those. Yeah, I tell my clients when they're just getting started that, look, you are the CEO. You're just the chief everything officer, right? You're not just sitting behind the big desk,
You're kind of doing
out orders. You have to do everything, right? You are the chief everything officer. And so, one of my first recommendations is always figure out, what is absolutely essential that you need to do, and how do you get as much of the other stuff, right, off your desk as possible, right? Because you need to.
Yeah. So that second book about the ladder, I had gotten to a place in my career where I was stuck. I was like, okay, so I'm doing this. I think I should be doing this. What is coming up next? So when I read that ladder book, I was like, oh, okay, this made it super easy. I read it in the same day. It was like a super easy read. And I was like, okay, so the first step I'm good at, I've done, completed. I think I'm now at the second step. And so it really like made it super clear what steps there are and where you are and how you get to the next level, and then slowly grow yourself to that CEO position.
I like that. I'm gonna have to look at that. There's another book that I've just started reading and I've just gotten into it, but it's called Traction. And the idea there is building what the author calls the entrepreneurial operating system. And so you're building the same way that a computer needs that underlying operating system, right? You deal with the apps, you make the apps do what they want to do, but there has to be that underlying system that's supporting all of that, right? So, and this matters as to whether you've got, an iPhone versus an Android, right? You can have the same exact app on those two different phones, but some people prefer the way that underlying system works with this phone versus that phone, right? And so you have to figure out for your business what that sort of underlying system. And so you start getting into, what are the company values? What kind of employees are we looking for? How are we going to manage the finances, and how are we going to deal with customers and clients and all these kinds of questions, but sort of on a broader, base level where you've got to figure out, when we go out and we bring people onto the team, what kind of environment are we bringing them into? What kind of culture are we fostering here, and all these kinds of things. And so ultimately the idea is that, similar to the way you're saying you're moving up the ladder so that eventually you're not doing all of this day-to-day stuff, you're running the business. And the idea, and this goes back to another book called The E-Myth, where the thesis of that book is, you need to be, as the owner, right? You need to be working toward the point where you're spending less time working in the business and more time working on the business, right? So, try to figure out a way to get as much of the day-to-day stuff doing, somebody else doing that stuff for you, so that you can be building the business. You can be making those relationships. You can be bringing in new clients and this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, that for me is a weakness, because I'm a bit of a control freak. So delegating is hard for me to do. So when I got done that ladder book, I was like, okay, I have to pass something, because I read that book, and it just so happened the day before I was doing something that took a long time, that I was like, you know what? I could have paid somebody to do this, because because that took me so long, I couldn't get the rest of things done that I needed to get done that day.
Yeah.
Because it took me, and I'm like, what am I thinking?
You, you have right. Yeah. And I'm the exact same way. I'm that control freak. I will micromanage every little detail, whether it's the grammar and spelling in a document that I'm about to send to a client,
Right,
or, watching, preparing a tax return or doing bookkeeping. I got to make sure every line is accounted for, that I figure that
right,
out. But then at the end of the day, you're absolutely right that you look back at that day and you say, okay, did I actually make money at a lot
right.
of that stuff that I was doing? If not, what could I have been doing during that time that would have actually made money or would have
Exactly.
led to making money, right? So that
Yeah,
hour that I spent, editing the heck out of that document for grammar and spelling, maybe I could have spent that hour, reconnecting with some clients that I haven't heard from in a while and trying
right,
to figure out if there's additional ways I can be helping them, or maybe I can
right.
be calling up prospects and figuring out, if
Exactly.
we can work together in these kinds of things. And so, there are things you've got to figure out, how are you going to push this business forward, not just get swamped
Right.
by the day-to-day kind of
Well,
stuff.
because then you get like, you get busy. You have to be prospecting 100% of the
Yeah.
time. And then,
Yeah.
so when you get busy, if you don't have an assistant or someone to help you get some of these tasks done, you get boggled down with the people you're working with. And by the time when you look up and they close, you have nothing else, so it's like starting that process over. And then you run into having maybe another couple months before a closing. So having that was my like, aha,
Yeah.
I'm
And
losing
that,
money because I'm not,
yeah.
getting myself organized
Well,
better.
and to go back to where we started with the way so much of what we can do in these service industries now is cloud-based. It is online. We all have
Right.
phones, right? It's made it that much easier to hire virtual help or outsourced
Right.
help, right? And so, I've got a virtual assistant, and when I get my business to the point to where I need staff to help me, there
Right.
are virtual offices out there that hire accountants. So I don't need to set up that brick and mortar office and have a
Right.
secretary in there or a receptionist, or, have people warming seats 8 hours a
Right.
day, 5 days a week. I can outsource that work, still get the work done well,
Yeah.
right? And not have to have all the overhead. And so, with, the, a lot of productivity coaches that I listen to their podcasts or I watch their videos. They pretty much all agree that the first thing you need to do with your business, once you've got that little bit of cash flow, right, that positive
Right.
cash flow, is hire you a virtual assistant and figure out what that person can be doing for you so that you can be focusing on the bigger stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
really important.
you brought that up. You get you a
I've
virtual
learned that
assistant,
the
find
hard way.
somebody. Yeah, right. And find one that's willing to work with you on your terms. If you only think you have 10 hours of work, worth of work a week,
Right.
for them to do, then say, look, I'm just going to pay you for 10 hours a week, but we'll see what happens. And you find out pretty quickly that you've got a lot more than that. you
Right.
think
Oh
you
yeah.
you think,
Well,
yeah,
exactly. So what I was challenged with, I want to say maybe a year and a half I was in the business. I was, I talked to my broker and I was like, listen, I like feel like I am doing stuff all day and I am not getting one appointment. I am not meeting one new person. I still have a whole bunch of cards I didn't hand out. I was getting stressed out. I didn't have a closing for a few months and it was really stressing me out. And so she said, get yourself a book and literally track, write down every single thing you're doing all day. Whether if you took an hour lunch, right, you took an hour lunch. If you whatever you did that day, track it for a full week. So I did that. I went and got a salon book because I couldn't find any like other appointment books, and wrote down every hour. Kind of literally just scheduled everything out, and it made me realize I wasn't as busy as I thought I was. And so that made me another aha moment was, wow, I need to stop doing that, do this, switch things
yeah,
around, as because we do so much. We're parents, we have our kids are doing things, activities, we're working. I mean, we have so much going on that really helped me get myself organized and say, okay, during this time, this is when I'm answering, making phone calls, answering emails, then I move on to the next task or whatever. That was a true eye opener for me.
yep. Absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, sometimes when you look back and see that you're just wasting a lot of time, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
that is procrastination, and procrastination comes from
Right.
insecurity, right? And so get over it. And my mentor, he'll say, there's this project I've been sitting on for a week, and I
Right.
finally just said I need to get this done, and it took him half an hour, because
Right.
he finally just said I needed to get this done, and now he's
Right.
looking and saying I could have had this done a week ago if I would have
Right.
just said I can get this done. I just need to get it off my desk.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think keeping yourself organized and setting those appointments, even if you just need an hour break or you need an hour to catch up on things, set that time for yourself, because that'll help you truly get what you need done. You have it in your calendar, whether it's your phone or a planner. I mean, and then it will help you get all the tasks you need to get done in an organized way, I think.
So you're meeting with people, you're making a lot of contacts. How are you keeping all of this organized then? What tools are you using to stay on top of this? I imagine realtors, they build up a list of contacts pretty quickly, and so
Oh, yeah,
how do
yeah.
you manage all of this?
Well, that was the other thing I liked about EXP. They have a fantastic CRM program. So it's easy for me to get someone set up in there, add them on like a campaign. Like if I have a new buyer, um, that went onto my website and I captured their information. They wanted to buy something in this town for this amount of money. They're automatically put into my system and it'll tag me, hey, give them a call today, leave a voicemail. Hey, give them a call today, don't leave a voicemail. So it kind of keeps that organized, but they all kind of get pushed in to that CRM. And I take that time. I know people that have it, they'll put everybody in and don't do anything with it. And it's supposed to help you work your business. So that has saved me a lot of time. When I switched over, got to put transfer your contacts. Then I took the time to get them organized, tag them correctly, where I met them, if we close the deal, whatever, what kind of stage they're in. So it keeps my business going. So I've taken a couple extra minutes to to really
Yeah.
get them where they need to be. The CRM is huge.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And
it's a really big deal. If you don't have a CRM, I mean, you're really losing out. I mean, you're working harder than you need to. Honestly, I mean, why work harder for something that you don't have to?
yeah, there's a level of I think when you talk to some people, especially people that have been in business for a long time, right? And that started this business when we didn't have
Oh
these
yeah,
digital tools, right? That they kind of, but that's cold. That's not personal, right?
right,
I'm only calling this person because this computer told me to call. But at the same time, it does keep you on top of those relationships. It
right,
helps keep you from letting those clients or those prospects slip through the cracks when maybe,
right.
that client, you told them, hey, I'll call you in 6 months and find out how the new house is working out. Or,
Yeah,
you have a client that, needs a plumber and you promise them, I'll send you the name of a few plumbers I
yeah,
know. Right. And then you never get around to it
right,
because, you didn't put that in a system anywhere. And
right.
so,
For
having that system actually makes you more personable, right? It
oh
keeps those
yeah,
relationships good.
yeah. Setting like when I close with a buyer, right at the closing table, I set a 30-day reminder on my phone to call to say, hey, did you get your deed? Did you file for homestead? I'm going to do that through my phone.
Right.
It kind of helps keep you top of mind because when you first meet a customer, it could be 9 to 10 contacts or touches, before you even get them on the phone or get them to respond. I mean, it takes time. And like you said, if you're going to promise something and then don't deliver, I mean, you're never going to go anywhere. You're just going to be kind of where you're at.
And there are things like that again, on the consumer side, you're working with this realtor, depending on how intense you are on trying to find this new house or something like this. But
Right,
for maybe a month or two, or however long it takes you to find that house, you're almost in daily communication with this person, right? You're
right,
trying to make sure that you're trying to find the right place, and then you're wanting to look at it, and then you're wanting to make the offer, and then you're hoping the
right,
financing comes through, and then you're hoping closing works out and all this. And
right.
then there's almost this, the day you close and you get the key, and it's just like, okay, we're done. But you're
Right,
not, because now you actually have this house there might be some maintenance issues that you didn't
right,
realize that didn't make it in the inspection, or there, might be these legal and tax issues, like you say, with homestead exemption and these kinds of
right.
things. And, your realtor, the person that helped you get to closing, is still going to be your trusted advisor on these
Oh,
kinds of things.
yeah.
And so, the realtor maintaining that relationship is a key part, because just because you closed and got the keys doesn't mean that relationship is done.
Right. Exactly. Like I think follow up for people, they miss a lot of opportunity because of a lack of follow up. And I feel like I'm really good at it. I mean, I've worked with people that took
Yeah.
us a year or longer, 2 years to even buy a home, but I've kept that relationship going, the contact going. And then, when you hit your first year anniversary, you don't ever want to forget that with a customer, especially if it's their first time buying a home. It's a huge deal. So I think it's really important to make sure you have those things. Again, take those couple extra minutes, get yourself set up correctly, and it's gonna lead you really far.
Awesome. Awesome.
I think.
So yeah, yeah. So on top of what you've already, and I think this has been a ton of great, value for, somebody that's thinking about coming into realty or is a new real estate agent. But on top of all that, any final pieces of advice or recommendations for somebody interested in becoming an agent or, brand new agent that, like you said, just shows up first day and says, I don't know what I'm
Right.
doing.
I would definitely do a business plan. When I first started and my broker said, "Hey, let's write a business plan," I'm like, "What? I don't even know what to expect, I just had no idea." So she really helped me kind of walk through it, but it really helped me, I think, jumpstart that very next year, because it would give me daily things I should be doing. As a new realtor, you have no idea what you should be doing. So it really gives you can put down things you should be doing every day, things you should be doing every month, every quarter, every year. I mean, it really gets yourself organized so that when you open your thing, you're like, okay, did I check off that I did this today? I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but me seeing it on my paper and saying, oh, I don't have that checked off, I'm not done. It forced me to make sure I had all those things done, which brought me business. And after a few months, I saw that it was really changing things, and I was meeting more people, because I was doing the task I was supposed to be doing. That I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So
Yeah.
that was a huge help.
And
Getting that.
I think you're absolutely right. I've seen studies, and statistics and stuff that say, people 5, 6, 7, 8 times more likely to actually do the thing after they write it down,
Right.
right? As opposed to
Yeah,
not
exactly. If you don't know
put it
where
on
you
paper.
want to get to and where who you want to be, then you'll always be lost. I mean, getting
Yeah.
organized with why did you even get into the business? So what was your goal when you got into the business? And having that plan, even if it's you do it yearly or do a 5-year or 10-year, whatever you want to do, I
Hmm.
think that goal setting part is really important for you to be successful in the business. And I also would say, to educate yourself. And if there's something you don't know, don't lie to your customer. Just say, listen, I'm not really sure, but I know I can get the answer. Let me find out and I'll get back with you. Because that shows them, listen, they may be new, but they have a huge support team behind them. Let's give them a shot. Let's give them a chance. Because if you don't give someone a shot and give them a chance to do their first deal, then they're not going to be successful in business. So educating yourself, I think, is also key, because then you can teach your customers. And I think when you're teaching someone else something, you're learning it yourself again. And I see that especially with my kids. My daughter's learning her sight words. She's teaching her brother, and she's learning them even better. It's like same kind of
Right.
process. And then
Yeah.
I think the last thing I would say, if you're thinking about getting into the business, make sure you have money saved, at least 6 months, or have if you're married or you have a spouse or whatever, make sure you guys kind of have that plan as to what you're going to do and how you're going to get there, and make sure things are covered so that you give yourself time. Like, don't stress yourself out and say, hey, it's been 2 months, I have nothing. It could take 6 months before you have something. Don't stress yourself out. Do your activities, keep working hard. It'll come.
Yeah, I think this goes back to, the first point of having a business plan, and then that one right there of know that, this isn't a job, this isn't employment anymore, right?
Right,
You're not showing up and being told what to do and then cashing a paycheck at the end of the
right,
week. You're showing up because now you're the boss, right? You have to go out
right.
there and make deals happen. You have to make money come in. You
Yeah,
have
you
to figure
really
out
have to be a
how you're
self
going to do that.
motivator.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, see a lot of people coming from W-2 jobs into these self-employment positions. They decide they're done with that job they've been doing a long time. So now they want to consult, right? Or they've been doing
Right,
it a long time and now they want to take a completely different career path. So they go into something, like
right,
this, where it's, this is going to be something completely different and I'm in charge. But then they show up to day one and they are still in that employee mindset. They're still in
oh
that,
yeah,
okay, my boss is going to tell me what to do. No, 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 no. When you go into business for yourself, you're the boss, right? There is
oh
no more
yeah.
boss, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
you are.
huge thing people miss. They come in the office, they're brand new, and they sit down, they're like, okay, great. We're like, okay, make calls. you know
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Start
what are
start
you
bringing
going to
that.
do? Like, yeah, it's like, what are you going to do to meet somebody? How are you going to get
Right.
customers? That's a huge thing. Yeah, like you said, people are like, oh, well, this is really not what I expected.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, listen, it's okay. Keep your license active. You may want to get back into it later. Maybe just
Yeah.
now is a good time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, like you said, you can pass the exam, you can get the license, and it's still a long stretch before you actually start
Right,
making money at this. And
right. And
and
some
being
people,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, being an accountant is a similar way, right? In order to become an enrolled agent, somebody that can represent their clients before, tax agencies and the IRS, this kind of thing, so that I can actually, do that higher level work for my
Right,
clients besides just preparing their tax returns. I had to go pass some tests, but passing those tests, they were difficult tests. I studied hard for them. I passed them. And among my colleagues, there's respect there because they know what it took to get that credential.
right,
But having that credential doesn't mean now I can prepare your tax return. Now it
right,
doesn't mean I know what it's like to bring on a client, to close a client, to do the work day in and day
right,
out, to answer all those questions, to keep those relationships going, right? And so, that you actually have to jump in and start getting that experience for.
right,
So there's the credential, but then there's
right.
also becoming that expert in your field,
Right.
working.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, don't hesitate to ask for help. Shadow people and say, hey, can I just kind of watch what you do and offer to help and say, I can get all the stuff prepared for your listing appointment. Can I just go with you and just be a fly on the wall? Kind of see how does that process go? Because I'm like, if I get a listing appointment and it's my first one, I really, I can completely botch this. If you don't know the conversation you should have or the questions you should have for that customer, the person you're trying to help, you're never going to get it. So shadowing people, someone for an open house, listing appointments, even sitting down with someone with a buyer, a first initial buyer's, appointment, that could really help a lot. So you can have an idea of what to ask, and the things you should be looking for and stuff like that.
Good deal. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. If listeners want to get in touch with you, if they want to ask you about, becoming a real estate agent, or they're just
Right.
interested in doing business with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me anywhere on social media, so that should be easy. But you can call me 904-679-2340, and or you can pull up my website. You can search Melissa Cruz with EXP Realty, and you'll find me online too. But yeah,
Good deal.
it doesn't matter what company you're with. I truly believe we can all be successful. So if there's a realtor that has a question or needs help and they're not getting it, please call. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm not gonna help you. Um, just call. I'm very nice and easygoing. I don't think if we don't help each other, our whole industry is going to go down. So, yeah, just let me know. But this was
Awesome. Good
fun.
deal.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. We'll make sure there's links to all that, and that
Okay.
information gets into the description in the show notes. But again, thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you to the listeners
Thank
and the
you.
viewers for watching. The notes for the show are going to be down in the description, or if you're listening on a podcast, in the show notes. I am Jeremy Wells. You can follow me at JWellsCFO across all the social media. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good one.
Take care.